Without objection, the chair is authorized to declare recesses of the subcommittee at any time. Welcome today to our hearing entitled To the Depths and Beyond, Examining the Blue Economy's Technologies. I recognize myself for 5 minutes for an opening statement. Good morning, and thank you to our witnesses for being with us today. Today's hearing is on a topic that impacts hundreds of millions of Americans daily, the technological advancements of the blue economy. For years, NOAA has set ambitious goals mapping and surveying the U.S. Exclusive Economic Zone, the EEZ. It's the largest in the world, spanning over 13,000 miles of coastline and containing 3.4 million square nautical miles of ocean, larger than the combined land of all 50 states. NOAA cannot meet these mapping goals all on its own, and private-public partnerships are key to getting this done by the target goal of 2030. Furthermore, a robust private sector contributing all types of technologies and techniques is critical to our advancement in all things related to ocean science. In my home state of Florida, we know that the health of our economy is directly connected to the strength of our waterways and ports. The innovations we're discussing here today will result in a thriving blue economy which benefits all Americans. Floridians are no strangers to the direct impact of weather and climate patterns. There are other indirect impacts such as energy production, international trade routes that ship our exports, as well as recreation and tourism opportunities that are part of the daily life in Florida. Making sure our critical infrastructure is protected is key to this continued success, as bad actors like China and Russia will seek to undermine the United States. As we continue to innovate, it is important that the investments we make have the best path to commercialization. Combining NOAA's ocean science expertise with private innovation allows the federal government to operate efficiently and have the greatest possible impact. Through our conversations like this one, we can ensure all Americans are moving in the right direction together. I look forward to working with members of the committee to establish a well-rounded approach to growing our blue economy. I again want to thank our witnesses for being here, and I look forward to each of your testimonies. I now recognize the ranking member of the subcommittee for an opening statement.
Well, thank you very much, Chair Franklin, for today's hearing on the blue economy, and thank you to our witnesses for agreeing to share your perspectives. Since the days of Roger Williams and the Gaspee Affair, the ocean has been central to Rhode Island's identity. But water isn't just a key to our past, it's critical to our future. Thanks to investments in the blue economy, my home state, the Ocean State, is home to thriving blue industries such as commercial fishing, tourism, defense production, and shipbuilding, as well as marine manufacturing, offshore wind, and oceanic research. Leveraging our state's natural strengths has ushered in a new age of prosperity for workers, small businesses, and research institutions. Estimates show that the blue economy employs more than 36,000 workers in Rhode Island and contributes over $5 billion to our gross domestic product every year. Around the country, there are approximately 2 million workers supporting the blue economy who contribute about $373 billion to our nation's GDP. To find out more, I embarked on a multi-day, multi-stop tour of Rhode Island's 1st Congressional District's blue economy in October. I learned about leaders training union workers pursuing careers in offshore wind. I engaged with researchers and higher education leaders working to deepen our understanding of the ocean. I saw how cutting-edge manufacturing companies are growing their footprints and investing in our communities. Tools like artificial intelligence and robotics are revolutionizing ocean-based industries and driving growth in the blue economy. Rhode Island has companies utilizing cutting-edge aquatic data collected through underwater drones that is increasing our nation's defense capabilities. We must continue to invest in the blue economy. It supports our innovation, our workforce, and our resiliency efforts. It's about protecting our global innovation leadership. We need public, private, and nonprofit stakeholders rowing in the same direction. I hope there are shared values in our committee about leveraging our ocean to advance scientific research, spur economic development, and defend our national security. But I am, at this moment, not certain those priorities are shared by the leadership at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue at the White House. Time and time again, we have seen President Trump and his billionaire supporters stand in the way. They have systematically undermined and jeopardized our progress in an area where we should continue to have great leadership. Take, for example, The whiplash firing and rehiring of staff, the canceling of contracts, and the freezing of grants across our government, including at NOAA and the Science Foundation and countless other key areas. Can anyone really claim that chaos and confusion supports economic development? I think the answer is clear. Hacking and slashing away at our federal agencies slows scientific progress that is urgently needed, threatens economic stability, undermines disaster preparedness, and can hinder national security. My state has welcomed NOAA with open arms. It will turbocharge ocean research, innovation, and initiatives that will grow our blue economy. Innovation has always been a collaborative effort between government, academia, nonprofits, and private industry. Collaboration between government and academia has driven foundational moonshot innovations. Private-public partnerships have turned breakthroughs into real-world applications and scaled them rapidly. However, Trump and DOGE and the actions of the last several weeks have worked overtime to turn back the clock. Crippling federal support for research at universities and the private sector are dimming the prospects for future scientific discovery. It is cutting off pathways and opportunities that lead to careers in science and innovation. The actions of President Trump have driven universities to lay off staff, issue new guidance for graduate students, and push away the very expertise that we urgently need now to continue our advances in the blue economy. Researchers are left scrambling, organizations are being forced into crisis mode, and students are dissuaded from pursuing careers in STEM. These funding cuts are threatening America's already tenuous global leadership in ocean research and innovation. Elon Musk is opening the door to competitors around the world and adversaries like China who are already catching up to our investments in research and development. So I end with this. What does it mean when the United States, a nation struggling to stay at the forefront of science, is unilaterally disarming and letting our strongest scientific tools wither on the vine? Look, I hope we can find a bipartisan consensus to push back against these decisions, because if not, there will come a point where recovery may no longer be possible. With that, I yield.
Thank you, Ranking Member Amo. And I'd also now at this time like to recognize the chairman of the full committee, Dr. Babin.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the gentleman, my friend from Florida, Chairman Franklin, for having this hearing today, and I look forward to the great work that he's going to accomplish as chairman of this very important subcommittee. On the surface, today's topic might seem mundane. However, if you delve deeper into the theme of this hearing, it becomes one of the most important topics that we can discuss. Our oceans and their vast assets are vital to global influence. Every nation depends on the ocean, whether as a trade route for imports or exports, or as a direct source of essential materials needed to prosper. They also possess numerous existing infrastructures and untapped resources that are absolutely critical to a thriving economy. This unavoidable dependence on our oceans is why that I'm examining today's hearing through the lens of national security. Exploring the ocean can improve data on the visibility and accuracy of sonar. Surveying can provide valuable information on deep-sea mining, and monitoring can ensure the safety of undersea cables and communications lines. Staying at the forefront of the technologies that support these fields is key for maintaining and strengthening our national security. And that's why I'm very pleased to have Oceaneering, and a Houston-based company that operates the world's largest fleet of remotely operated vehicles here today. They have nearly perfected the model of developing innovative dual-use technologies that meet both their business needs and the demands of the United States Navy and other federal agencies. There's no need for our federal researchers to start from scratch in order to invent world-changing technology. Private companies like these testifying before us here today are already 10 steps ahead of this process, and stand ready to share their expertise or even deploy their ready-to-go technologies. I look forward to hearing about examples of this innovation and exploring ways to better position the federal government to capitalize on this. I want to thank you, and Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as an oceanography major and a career naval officer before, I find today's topic extremely exciting, far from mundane. Space is exciting, and I like space. We have a lot of that in Florida as well, but the oceans have always been near and dear to me. Next, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our witnesses. Our first witness today is Mr. Earl Childress, Senior Vice President and Chief Commercial Officer of Oceaneering International. Mr. Childress became the Chief Commercial Officer and Senior Vice President of Business Development for Oceaneering in March of 2020. Previously, he served as Executive Vice President of Strategy and Business Development for Teledyne Marine. Our next witness is Mr. Shepard Smith. He serves as the Chief Technology Officer for XOcean, which designs, builds, and operates the world's largest commercial fleet of uncrewed survey vessels. He retired from a 28-year career at NOAA as a Rear Admiral in 2021, where he served 10 years at sea. That's a long time at sea. Not at 10 years. I've spent 3 or 4 years, but I appreciate that. I understand what that sacrifice involves. And directed the Hydrographic Survey and Nautical Charting Program at the Office of Coast Survey. Our third witness is Dr. Margaret Leinen. She is Director of Scripps Institution of Oceanography and Vice Chancellor for Maritime Science of University of California at San Diego. She is an ocean biogeochemist, which is a very fascinating, multidisciplinary topic we were discussing previously, and a paleoceanographer whose research includes study of ocean carbon cycling and the role of the oceans in climate. And our final witness today is Dr. Tim Janssen, co-founder and CEO of Sofar Ocean. After receiving his PhD in physical oceanography from Delft University, he later became researcher at the Naval Postgraduate School and a teacher at San Francisco State University. Tim co-founded Spoondrift Technologies in 2016, which turned into Sofar in 2019. I now recognize Mr. Childress for 5 minutes to present testimony.
Thank you, Chairman Babin, Ranking Member Lofgren, Subcommittee Chairman Franklin, and Subcommittee Ranking Member Amo, and the rest of the members of the committee. I find myself very nervous this morning, maybe more nervous than normal, and as I was reflecting on that, the reason is the importance of what we're talking about today. I've witnessed throughout my career how strong public-private partnerships can accelerate innovation, and I urge the subcommittee to remain committed to enabling this uniquely American superpower. It's what we do better than anywhere else in the world. Oceaneering has spent more than 60 years pioneering ocean exploration through advanced subsea robotics and remote operations. From our origins as commercial divers, to developing atmospheric diving suits, to building the world's largest work-class remotely operated vehicle, or ROV fleet. Our journey reflects a commitment to solving the toughest challenges in the harshest environments. Our capabilities have been proven time and time again, from recovering spacecraft from the ocean floor, surveying historic shipwrecks, and locating lost commercial aircraft. Today, Oceaneering is driving the future of maritime operations through remote, resident, and autonomous systems that enhance safety, reduce operational costs, and minimize environmental impacts. These technologies are transforming offshore work and enabling safer, more sustainable operations, while also onshoring jobs that have traditionally been offshore. Our resident remotely operated vehicles and uncrewed surface vessels are already helping operators reduce vessel days, which translates into measurable safety improvements and significant CO2 reductions. For example, our Liberty eROV, an all-electric, battery-powered resident ROV, has demonstrated major fuel savings compared to a vessel-supported system. According to our customer, Equinor, shifting to resident and remote ROVs can reduce emissions by 40% for a given project. The numbers from Equinor support a 20-day residency for a work-class ROV is like removing 100 cars from the road in CO2 reductions. Our new Freedom AUV, or autonomous underwater vehicle, with long-duration autonomous inspection capabilities, builds on this progress by enabling persistent asset monitoring without continuous surface vessel support. Electrification is the next major frontier. We are rapidly increasing the electrification of subsea systems to reduce reliance on hydraulic power and further minimize the carbon footprint of offshore energy operations. These innovations align directly with global efforts to decarbonize the offshore sector while enhancing operational performance and asset integrity. Equally important is the dual-use nature of these technologies. Tools originally developed for commercial operations, such as our onshore remote operations centers, or OROC, are now being adopted by the U.S. Navy and hold promise for agencies like NOAA. OROC's capabilities can support remote bathymetric surveys and enable real-time control of unmanned systems and fleets of unmanned systems, offering scalability across a range of government and scientific missions. At the heart of all of this progress has been research. The Scripps Institution of Oceanography, co-panelist here today, is a leading force in advancing ocean technology. Collaborations with Scripps, Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, and the multitude of other research centers are crucial to sustaining and increasing the speed of innovation. Support from the National Science Foundation continues to fund foundational research that leads to the sensing capabilities that are needed on these subsea robots. With strong public-private partnerships and a shared commitment to exploration, the U.S. can continue to lead in ocean technology, shape a future that is rapidly deployed, safe, and sustainable. Chairman Franklin, I look forward to a thoughtful discussion and welcome any questions on how Oceaneering can continue to contribute to the future of ocean exploration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Childress. I now recognize Mr. Smith for 5 minutes to present testimony.
Thank you, Chairman Babin, Chairman Franklin, Ranking Member Amo. Thank you for an invitation to present to this hearing. I'm here as the Chief Technology Officer of XOcean, a global ocean data company, but I spent the majority of my career serving the American people as a commissioned officer with NOAA, and I will use that experience to provide some context in my remarks. NOAA maintains 3 complementary programs for commercial engagement in their ocean mapping enterprise.
Excuse me, Mr. Smith, could you turn your mic on for us?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I can hear
Thank
you,
you.
but the recordings need that to pick it up.
Apologize for that. NOAA maintains 3 complementary programs for commercial engagement in their ocean mapping enterprise. The Hydrographic Surveys contract administered by Coast Survey, the Uncrewed Maritime Systems IDIQ administered by OMAO, and the Ocean Exploration Cooperative Institute administered by OAR. These programs work together, are well coordinated, and each has additional capacity beyond which has been appropriated in recent years. And one of my last acts as a public servant in 2020 was to co-chair the Interagency NOMEC Council to develop a strategy to fully map all U.S. waters, the deeper parts by 2030 and the shallower parts by 2040. The longer time horizon on shallower waters recognized that the country did not have the capacity to efficiently survey the vast unmapped areas of U.S. continental shelf and Great Lakes using conventional ships. Instead, NOMEC called for acceleration of R&D and rapid adoption of emerging ocean technologies, such as autonomous platforms, that could scale to the scope of the challenge. When I retired from NOAA, I remembered this unmet technology challenge and sought out a company that could meet it. XOcean stood out from other uncrewed survey vessel companies in that it not only designed and produced the USVs, but had built an entire company around efficiently operating them and had a clear vision for scaling it quickly into the ocean mapping enterprise. XOcean is now building its 31st USV. We've been able to adapt our vessels over the years as we've learned from our own high-tempo operations. This year, we're planning for over 2,500 days at sea in Europe, Australia, and North America. Our clients include offshore energy, utilities, government, and science institutions. We're on the contract framework for hydrographic surveys in the United Kingdom, in Canada, and Australia, as well as NOAA's IDIQ for data buy from uncrewed maritime systems. We've operated in 23 different jurisdictions around the world. Our all-remote staffing models allows us to use both the USVs and our expert staff very efficiently. For example, when the weather is too rough for surveying in one area, the watchstanders and surveyors can be assigned to a different vessel in a different location entirely, where the weather is good. Our technical experts keep the reliability world-class by remotely resolving most problems at sea. XOcean's operational model scales well from fast mobilization for short projects with a single boat in hazardous areas to huge projects with multiple boats at sea for months on end. Some companies and government agencies are seeking to take advantage of new observing technology by purchasing equipment and operating it themselves or contracting it for its operation. XOcean has chosen not to sell its vehicles. We've seen that this approach leads to low utilization rates, poor reliability, and shortened technological lifespan as the systems fall out of use after just a few years. XOcean has chosen not to, we can deliver better results for our clients at a lower cost by operating the USVs ourselves, maintaining them meticulously, and keeping the whole fleet up to date with our latest technology. We take all the risk and deliver the data the client needs to their specifications. This year's NOAA Ocean Mapping Progress Report shows that 46% of U.S. waters are still unmapped. Of this gap, I estimate that proven, scalable, and affordable USV platforms could efficiently meet around 1/3. With the technology now in demonstration phase, that could rise to 2/3 within 5 years. The remaining third may require highly capable vessels, like the ones that NOAA operates, for the more complex exploration and characterization work. There are two potential policy changes that Congress could consider to accelerate the adoption of new technologies into NOAA's ocean mapping programs. First, this technology and industry is advancing very quickly, and NOAA is not scheduled to reconsider participants in its hydrographic surveys contract until 2029. A mid-cycle review with the potential to add additional capacity with new capabilities could allow NOAA to access the latest technology earlier while leaving the existing panel in place. Second, the XOcean administered by OMAO executes its hydrographic scope through the hydrographic surveys contract, which does not include any companies that specialized in UMS. As a result, NOAA is limiting its breadth of opportunities for programs to gain experience with established autonomous survey companies. Thank you, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Next, I'd like to recognize Dr. Leinen for her testimony.
Thank you, Chair Bowden, Chair Franklin, Ranking Member Amo, and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm Margaret Leinen, Vice Chancellor for Marine Science at UC San Diego and Director of Scripps Institution of Oceanography, one of the world's oldest and most respected ocean research institutions. Since 1903, we've worked closely with federal agencies and NOAA since its inception to advance science, train leaders, and address environmental challenges. Scripps has long led innovation in deep ocean research, mapping, and monitoring, core to our security, the blue economy that we're focused on today, and national competitiveness. For example, our Marine Physical Lab has supported Navy undersea technology since World War II and continues to train active duty Navy and veterans today. Many security innovations began in academic labs like ours and scale up through our partnerships with NOAA, NASA, Department of Defense, and the Coast Guard. While I'll share Scripps examples today, every oceanographic institution has similar stories of collaboration with NOAA. At Scripps, we host NOAA-affiliated programs, including California Sea Grant, a NOAA Cooperative Institute, and the Southern California Coastal Ocean Observing System. These partnerships extend NOAA's reach by leveraging our investment and infrastructure. Through these efforts, Scripps deploys ocean observing technologies like Argo floats, spray gliders, and buoys, critical for forecasting weather and extreme weather, managing fisheries, and ensuring public safety. We're also advancing biogeochemical Argo, which measures how the ocean absorbs carbon and is going to be useful for looking at marine carbon dioxide removal. We're also deploying deep Argo floats that contribute to next generation seafloor mapping with their ability to go to full ocean depth. Expanding these arrays will fill vital data gaps in remote ocean regions. We support interagency mapping and exploration. For example, we recently led a deep-sea mapping mission around Guam and Palau with NOAA and DoD. This was to support national security and resource assessments. Closer to home, we surveyed 2 post-World War II deep-sea DDT dump sites using uncrewed systems. With help from NOAA's California Cooperative Oceanic Fisheries Investigation Program, a 75-year time series of the region, we're tracing this pollution through the food web from the past to the present, creating a model for addressing legacy contaminants nationwide. These capabilities serve local communities too. We provide real-time flood forecasting and pollution tracking to agencies like the Port of San Diego, the San Diego Airport Authority, the City of San Diego, and the Navy bases in San Diego, helping the city and our naval partners prepare for coastal hazards. Because of the partnership with NOAA, this is NOAA science in action at the street level, protecting lives and infrastructure through the partnership. We're also developing the ocean workforce. Many of our undergraduates and graduate students go on to public or private sector roles, including startups. Through programs like our Start Blue Accelerator, funded by NOAA and the Economic Development Administration, just in the first 2 years, we supported 22 early-stage ocean companies from our students and faculty and helped them raise over $10 million from this very early stage to bring their science to market. To continue this momentum, federal and sustained federal investment is essential, specifically and particularly in ships, observing systems, and platforms and research infrastructure. These are long-term commitments that are very difficult to restart once interrupted. NOAA plays a critical role in bridging that gap. And thank you for your continued support of NOAA's partnerships with academia. These are essential to our national security, our economic growth, environmental resilience, and workforce development. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Leinen. And finally, our final witness, Dr. Tim Janssen, for his testimony.
Thank you, Chairman Babin, Chairman Franklin, Ranking Member Amo, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today about the future of blue economy innovation and the role that public-private partnerships play in accelerating ocean technology and driving economic growth and benefit the security and well-being of Americans. My name is Tim Janssen. I'm an oceanographer first, and I'm also CEO and co-founder of Sofar Ocean. We are based in California. We employ about 100 people. We build everything we build here in the United States. Our goal as a company is to accelerate ocean digitization to power the transition to an information economy and eventually ocean artificial intelligence. And to that end, we build sensors. We own and operate the largest privately owned ocean sensor network in the world. We are a leader in maritime weather intelligence. Our software application, Wayfinder, routes large commercial ships at sea every day to improve safety, increase the efficiency, reduce fuel costs, and reduce emissions. So Wayfinder, think of it as Google Maps, but for large commercial ships. Throughout history, our ocean and coastlines have been a principal economic driver, a major strategic opportunity, and a critical part of both our ecosystem and our weather system. The future economic growth and strategic development will, for a large extent, be data-driven, right? Powered by advances, rapid advances in artificial intelligence. Now, the challenge with ocean artificial intelligence is not artificial intelligence. The challenge with ocean AI is data. The reason why large language models, LLMs, like the ones that power, say, ChatGPT, why they work, is because they have an internet to train on. In contrast, information and data in the ocean is exceedingly sparse and mostly non-existent. To put that in perspective, if we were to equate all the information and data that we collect as humanity in a single year and equate that to the distance from here to the sun, then the amount of data that we capture from the ocean in that same year could be estimated about the length of a football field. And so this is about to change. Like rapid advances in technology and bringing IoT into the ocean, this will now rapidly change. And so we are at an inflection point, and we have to choose whether we want to lead or follow. And if we want to lead, that means that we have to double down in investing in technical innovation and set audacious goals. And the United States has an incredible track record in doing so. Through long-term investments in basic research, we have some of the best universities and scientists in the world. We also have the best private industry and capital markets to invest in those technologies, scale them up, and build for impact. But investors cannot invest if the market is unknown or the risk is too high. And the ocean information economy is new and appears mostly to be unfamiliar as an economic opportunity. And so we need very strong public-private partnerships to reduce the risk of technologies and build up those markets. And to give you an example of what a successful partnership looks like, Sofar built Bristlemouth. It's a strange word, but what it means is basically an open source standard for marine applications. So think of it as, open source USB for the ocean, sort of a foundational enabling technology necessary to bring IoT to the ocean for everyone. Now, Bristlemouth could not and would not have existed without the partnership of organizations like the Office of Naval Research and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, and several other government organizations and philanthropic organizations in the United States. Through these partnerships, Bristlemouth is now blossoming, is widely adopted, and we've just announced a partnership with MITRE to accelerate this to unlock ocean artificial intelligence. Now, through the National Oceanographic Partnership Program, we've worked with NOAA to deploy sensors in front of active hurricanes. So to get real-time data to improve forecasts and improve basically predictability of hurricanes Francine, Milton, and Helene. We work with the United States Navy to explore how our data and our commercial software for routing ships can support the Navy mission. And we work with the National Data Buoy Center and IUs to explore how our technologies can be integrated into their networks effectively. And so I just want to point out that basically these examples lead to the conclusion that to win in the ocean opportunity and to lead, we need strong public-private partnerships. And to do that, we need strong government organizations that have the funding, the prioritization, and the ability to work with private companies like Sofar and others. And so I would like to leave you with 3 actionable recommendations for your consideration. First, reauthorize the Weather Act. This sets up and maintains many foundational public-private partnerships, including the National Mesonet Program. Second, prioritize the development of foundational technologies through NOAA and other federal agencies to support market drivers for emerging marine technology and maintain U.S. leadership. Third, streamline procurement processes and emphasize flexible contracting mechanisms to accelerate public-private partnerships. Government contracts, even zero-cost contracts like CRADAs, are slow and unnecessarily complicated. This should change. Incentivizing companies to engage with federal agencies through effective contract mechanisms will increase competition and will enable and make it easier to provide access to cutting-edge technologies for the government. Now, with congressional support for public-private partnerships and a continued commitment to ocean research at NOAA and other organizations, we are in a position to accelerate and transform the U.S. blue economy into an information economy. We can do that while bolstering our national security, ensure the health and safety of both our coastal communities and coastal infrastructure, and safeguard our oceans for future generations. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify. Look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Janssen. I thank the witnesses all for your testimony, and I now recognize myself for 5 minutes for some questions. And back with you, Dr. Janssen, I particularly zeroed in on your testimony about AI. This committee kind of ran point last year when we did the AI task force. That the Science, Space, and Technology Committee was kind of the core of that group, even though it crossed all disciplines across Capitol Hill here. Growth in AI, as we know, it's exponential, it's ubiquitous, it's now on the tip of everyone's tongue and everywhere we go now. And we have to continue to lead. I appreciate what you said, we're either going to lead or we're going to follow. With respect to Bristlemouth, can you tell me a little bit more about that and how it's driving the cutting-edge data assimilation techniques? The decision to go open source. We debated that a lot in our task force last year. There's pros and cons, but in the case of what you guys have done with Bristlemouth, can you talk a little bit about that decision?
Yeah, I can. First off, I think it's really important to see sort of like the state of where we're at. This is still very, very nascent in terms of like technology development in the ocean. As a result, I think one of the most important things is that we should not think in zero sums. The sum is small. We should increase the sum. And so with Bristlemouth, and this is part of like, if you think about AI, we need to get to abundant data one way or the other, right? Without that, AI cannot exist. We used to have models that could understand physics because we put the physics in there and then we just need data to start them. Now we need basically data to teach these models what physics looks like. So we need a lot more data than we ever did before, but the opportunity is massive. Now, if you think about where it starts, is sensing. And so today, the state of the art in sort of like marine sensing technology is roughly equivalent to you getting handed a mouse with bare wires, and you're going to have to figure out how to make that work with your computer. Pre-USB desktop computing. Even if a plug looks like it fits the other one, if you put them together, usually one of the sides starts to smoke, and certainly nothing is going to work. And so that's where the first hurdle starts. To scale sensing, we need to make interconnectivity of hardware much simpler, just like we did with USB, with incredible outcomes. And so Bristlemouth is exactly that. The decision to open source was not free. Like, as a company, we would have not open sourced it because it's expensive and we could not justify the investment. It would have been valuable for us and we would have just done that. But by partnering up with the government and wanting to make it open source, because still the benefit to us would be equal, but the benefit to society and the ocean community would be massive, we decided to do that with support from philanthropy, the Office of Naval Research and NOAA. And so it is a decision that costs money. It's a decision that will have to be made sort of like carefully, but I think it's the right decision. The most important thing is that we get ourselves out of the hole and get to large-scale ocean sensing as quickly as possible.
Very good. All right. My hometown is Lakeland, Florida. We're home of NOAA's Aircraft Operations Center. We have the Hurricane Hunters. I had the privilege, along with Representative Frost, last year to go up in Hurricane Milton. At the time we flew into it, it was, I think, the 4th or 5th strongest storm in the Atlantic Basin on record. Exciting journey. My hat's off are to the men and women who fly those missions all the time. They provide very critical data that we need as these storms are evolving to keep our people safe. But they can only paint, the hurricane hunters only paint a part of the picture of these storms, and ocean data can unlock the true driving forces behind these storms. We're lacking real-time information to complement the aircraft data. For all of you, I'd love to get your thoughts on some of the operational technology you're either using or developing or seeing coming down the track that can assist NOAA in unlocking these driving forces behind these hurricanes. And Mr. Childress, if you want to start that one.
Sure. Probably on this panel, not the best guy to answer, but I think the bandwidth availability globally now means that we get data available quickly. Margaret was talking in the anteroom coming in about biogeochemical floats that are actually making analysis of genomes and then transmitting that data back all the time. We're seeing that in the commercial world with bandwidth availability all over the globe where we can remotely control USVs, ROVs, others without people in the field. So I think bandwidth development and availability is a key breakthrough for us.
Mr. Smith.
If I could answer it slightly differently, because one of the things we're interested in is the impacts of the storms as well. And we've done a lot of work in coastal mapping, both at XOcean, of course, at NOAA, on the storm run-up models for storm surge. And a project that XOcean did for NOAA a couple of years ago was exactly that in the coast of North Carolina for updating those storm surge models to be able to understand what the impact was of the storm.
Okay. Dr. Leinen?
Yes. So one of the critical elements for hurricanes is their intensity. and the intensity is related to the heat in the upper ocean. And the importance of that and the dominance of that was actually developed by a University of Rhode Island oceanography professor, Isaac Guinness. And the key there is that it's not just the temperature of the surface, which you can get from satellites, but you have to have the heat of the entire upper layer of the ocean, and that demands robotic capabilities. So that's a really important factor there. On the West Coast, we're more concerned with atmospheric rivers than hurricanes, and they cause a tremendous amount of damage. Those are an oceanic phenomenon, and in order to be able to predict them and to determine how strong they are, and they have a scale, a 5-point scale just like hurricanes do, you have to have the information from the ocean and the atmosphere interaction with it. And as you and I discussed, the hurricane flights during the non-hurricane season are out on the West Coast looking at atmospheric river recon. And not only is that important for the storms that hit exactly on the coast, but those atmospheric river systems go inland. They're lifted up by the mountains, and they're responsible for the huge snow events and the severe storms in the Rockies and in Colorado. In fact, the avalanches earlier this year were the direct result of an atmospheric river. So this ability to set up the observations that allow us to make these predictions for extreme weather events are critical. And I think the work by Dr. Guinness was taking place during the 80s and 90s. The work for atmospheric rivers is taking place now. And then that work eventually is handed off to the ability of the private sector to be able to do these kinds of measurements. And it's tremendous to be here and watch these companies, which have oceanographers working with them, take the results from that early research and turn it into products and services for all of us. And NOAA is the glue in the middle of that between the academic world and the private sector world.
Thanks, Dr. Leinen. Dr. Janssen, I'm going to have to get back to you separately on that. Out of respect for my colleagues, I'd now like to turn it over to the ranking member from Rhode Island for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Look, I think we've seen that the actions of Donald Trump and Elon Musk have upended awards, outright canceling already awarded grants for critical ocean research and development initiatives. Stalling scientific progress, that's a fact. Trump and his right hand are stifling the development of the next generation of marine scientists and experts. Their actions have already forced universities across our nation to preemptively reduce staff, cut student admissions due to the loss of federal funding. So, Dr. Leinen, at a high level, can you give me a sense of how the Trump administration's pauses and cancellations of grants has harmed the academic community?
As I thought about the impact of workforce in advance of this hearing, I reached out to 8 other oceanographic institution directors, including URI, and asked them about their admissions for this year for graduate study. Most of them had been accepting about 50 students a year. All of us have decreased our admissions by half. So and those were just reaching out very quickly.
And would you say that's sort of an estimate that it could be worse?
Well, I think that is their estimate. I think what could be worse is that that's just 8. And so this is going on around the country. But for the 8 of us, that's 200 students who will not be enrolled in graduate programs, who can't go on to be in companies like this just in 1 year.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think it's important to say that's 200 innovators who are off the field, who are not in the game, who are not contributing to the great public-private partnerships that we've highlighted today. I'd like to ask everybody else on the panel, with that in mind, how would a declining technical workforce impact your business, right? You want to grow. How is this going to make a difference on all of you? And how does it, frankly, hurt our overall pursuits in the blue economy? Start with Mr. Childress.
Good, good question. I think for us, for Oceaneering, the science and technologists that we hire are not necessarily related to oceanographic and oceanographic research. They're more applied technology people. Clearly, we need a robust student body coming out. We hire thousands of employees every year, have for the last 4 years. But not for us, not particularly scientists. These are applied technologists.
Mr. Smith, I know you have deep experience at NOAA from your perspective.
We do. I do. I'd say from XOcean's point of view, we have some really top-notch scientists who obviously benefited from programs like these in the past. But I would say our clients are also would have been in these types of cadres. So both the mapping director for BP or other big companies like that would have also been scientists that were part of this community. And so by eroding that capacity, it's not just on the provider side, it's on the client side as well. And I will just say, from my experience at NOAA, that the power of NOAA is in those really incredible people, that team that they've put together over decades. That really, I was proud to represent a team like that internationally and interagency, no finer part of government, and with the assemblage of talent, all of which relies on this foundation.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Dr. Janssen?
Yeah, somebody once told me that a company is basically people and processes. And so if you impact the talent pool, you're going to impact basically the success of a company. Ultimately, it relies on bringing in exceptional talent across disciplines, partially from ocean science, like institutions like Scripps and others, but also a lot of software engineering, obviously. So yeah, investing in talent, education, and the future of basically our workforce is essential for the success of startups. Seems like an obvious statement.
Sometimes the obvious things don't inspire the action that we deserve. And so I think ultimately there's a chilling effect that isn't necessarily seen in this year's admissions or next year's admissions, but extends for a while. And I'm grateful for your leadership and innovation, but we need to give you the people to get the work done. With that, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Ramo. I'd now like to recognize the chairman, Dr. Babin.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Appreciate all of you witnesses being here and giving us your testimony. Earlier this month, the Wall Street Journal published an article titled, "China is Mapping the Seabed to Unlock New Edge in Warfare." This article provided in alarming detail how China is supercharging its ocean mapping and drilling enterprise. Meanwhile, here in the United States, a Texas A&M research vessel, the Joint Oceanographic Institutions for Deep Earth Sampling Resolution, ended operations 4 years earlier than expected last year in 2024. Mr. Childress, how do U.S. ocean exploration capabilities compare with other nations' capabilities? What are the risks to critical national research and strategic interests if we fall behind in this area? If you could answer those.
Yes, sir. And again, not an expert on other countries. I think the capability here in the United States is extraordinary when deployed. I agree 1,000%. Coastal mapping is critical. The EEZ mapping is critical for everything that we do, whether it's development of resources, whether it's deployment of our military, whether it's for the economic benefit that's generated within 50 miles of our coastlines. Critical. And the technology here and our superiority in this technology, I think, is paramount to future success.
Well, that's great. And I would also remind everybody here that 2024 was not the Trump administration. That occurred during the Biden administration. Mr. Childress, again, sticking with you for a moment, in my opening statement, I mentioned that Oceaneering is really good at developing dual-use technologies. Can you tell us more about how this is important to public-private partnerships, both from your perspective on the industry side and ours on the government side?
Yes, sir, and great question. Our public public-private and dual use is actually reversed from the typical one, in that typically what we've done is developed in the commercial world and translated it into the government world. For instance, as I mentioned earlier, our onshore remote operating centers. We developed that for an energy application, and we developed it to really improve safety and reduce emissions. And that same core technology now is being deployed with the Defense Innovation Unit in the U.S. Navy. Furthermore, in the development of specialty systems for the U.S. government, we've taken what we do globally, and remember, we operate 250 work-class ROVs, so think 6-ton robots that operate down to 3,000 or 4,000 meters, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with 6,000 offshore personnel. That capability deploys very well when you think about the government having similar type systems. So if you think about the NOAA having a fleet of USVs that need to be operated, our direct experience in doing that all over the globe, our ROV people don't like it, but I call it the McDonald's of ROVs. You go to McDonald's in Beijing and you get a Big Mac, it tastes like a Big Mac. If you go anywhere in the world and you get an Oceaneering ROV to go do a job, it's going to operate exactly the same way with the same reliability and 99% uptime. And I think that commercial focus drives directly into what the government could do to really promote mass data aggregation and data collection.
Right. Thank you very much. And Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Next, I'd like to give 5 minutes for questioning to my colleague from North Carolina, Ms. Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you so much to all of our witnesses for being here. As you know, North Carolina has a large coast on the ocean. I don't represent that area, but I've adopted it because it's just so wonderful. And we have industries that, span tourism to fishing to the potential for offshore wind. And it's so important that we have a forward-looking approach to dealing with our coast in North Carolina and then, of course, all over the country. I want to also let you know that NOAA plays a huge role both in my district and on the coast. I've visited several NOAA facilities and know that, they're a scrappy little agency. They do a lot with very little. And when we talk about cutting waste, fraud, and abuse, I would say probably the last agency I would think about for that would be NOAA. So to that end, the current administration is significantly reducing funding and pulled or paused federal contracts for critical ocean research and development initiatives. These cuts not only hinder scientific progress, but also create uncertainty for private sector partners who rely on federal support to drive innovation and maintain U.S. leadership in ocean science. And I'd like to ask this question of each of you. How is existing ocean research and monitoring infrastructure currently supported? So does NOAA play a huge role in it, or is it kind of the glue that puts, brings things together? And then what is the likelihood of industry building and supporting this infrastructure absent public investment and partnership with NOAA? And so please, whoever's motivated to go first, I'd like to hear. But I'd like to hear from all of you.
I can go. So as I mentioned, it's essential to have strong partnerships. There is no scenario where private industry could simply take over. I think the value of both sides is that we are operating in a different space with different mandates. A company can only operate when there is a market driver. We have to make money. We have to make a profit because otherwise we do not exist, right? The government has a different mandate. I mean, they are there for the public need, and there is a lot of overlap, and we can help and assist each other, and I think we can get much better at that, as I've tried to outline in my statement. But I think it's important to understand that rather than, getting rid of the government is setting them up for success to working more effectively, perhaps with partners in private industry, so we can move faster together. So I'll hand it over to the next person.
Thank you. Dr. Leinen?
Yes, it's an interesting question. Who does the observations? And here, too, it's an ecosystem. I think that NSF and Office of Naval Research really work at the development of ideas for instruments and technology. And they also do the campaigns that allow us to understand processes so that we can attach the observations to the processes. And that's a critical part of being able to use those observations effectively. But neither of them are agencies that are in the long-term synoptic, persistent observation business. They're in the development and the process business. And it's NOAA who is the partner for persistent synoptic observation. And that's that's a great system in which you're not having a lot of redundancy in that. And I shouldn't forget NASA with satellites. That's another critical piece. So the four of them together have given us just an incredible ecosystem for observation, and we don't want to lose it.
Great. Mr. Smith and Mr. Childress, real quick.
I was in Wilmington, North Carolina last week for the Hydrographic Society's annual conference. There were very few NOAA people, current NOAA people there, but if I'd done a poll of the room to see who had started or spent any time of part of their career with NOAA, it would have been a huge, huge percentage of the room, including the leaders of many of the commercial organizations there. So that's the role NOAA plays in the U.S. hydrographic community. So really clear leadership, and I wouldn't want to speculate what the U.S. hydrographic community would look like without NOAA. I hope we don't have to see it.
Thank you. Mr. Childress, I know we're a little over time.
Just quickly, the biggest thing for us is weather forecasting. We have vessels and people working offshore, and those offshore weather forecasts are absolutely critical for us economically and safety.
Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you, Representative Ross. Next, I'd like to recognize our only landlocked member of the subcommittee, Representative Hurd from Colorado.
Thank you very much, Chairman Franklin and Ranking Member Amo, for holding this important committee hearing. It is indeed true that Colorado is landlocked. We don't touch the ocean. You don't think of blue economy technologies in Colorado typically together, but it's really important what we're talking about here today, Mr. Chairman. And also, Dr. Janssen did remind me that NOAA does operate the National Geophysical Data Center out of Boulder, Colorado, in my home state. So my question, I'm going to start with Mr. Childress, Mr. Shepard, and then Dr. Janssen. Blue economy technologies and federal research programs behind them span multiple agencies, NASA, NOAA, EPA, and close coordination between these agencies and industries is really important. As industry leaders in economy technologies, I'd like to hear from each of you about which federal agencies do you work with and engage with most often, and what actions, if any, can Congress take to improve the public-private partnerships and enhance U.S. competitiveness in this space? I'm going to start with you, Mr. Childress.
Yeah, we'll throw a curveball here. Our biggest customer is the Department of the Navy. Our second biggest customer is NASA when it comes to space. But I have thought considerably about this. How do we improve public-private partnership? And I think there are three things there. I think one is better definition and clearer swim lanes between agencies. Eliminate the overlap and make it clear where to go and where to engage. Number two is a technology roadmap that is very similar to what NASA does. NASA has 100 years. They say they want to go to Jupiter. They say, here are all the things that we can't do to get to Jupiter. I think the same thing, we need that for the ocean. And then the third thing is, I'll repeat what Shep said earlier, and that is, or Tim said it actually, the contracting mechanisms. It's onerous to do business at times. The contracting mechanisms are complicated. You need your own specialty legal people in order to do the contracting. So I think if you could find ways to simplify that, that would go a long way.
Thank you, Mr. Childress. Mr. Smith.
So we work with NOAA and with BOEM, the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, for our offshore wind regulation, but potentially a client for science as well. And I think the for the NOAA side, I made a couple of comments in my testimony already about some of the contractual mechanisms that could be helpful. I do want to comment, though, that committees like this have asked us over the years, us NOAA in the old days, about coordination. And it's gotten so tight in the recent years through the IOCM program and others, where there's the possibility of duplication and the capture of synergy have gotten so much better. So I think we should all feel confident that investing in mapping in these programs is a responsible thing to do. There's no duplication of effort. It's well coordinated.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Dr. Janssen, what agencies do you engage with most often, and how can Congress improve that public-private partnership?
Yeah, we work mostly with the Office of Naval Research, NOAA, U.S. Navy, anything touches water, basically. The biggest challenges, I think, for smaller companies, and we are definitely the smaller organization here in this room, is timing and complexity. Both are really hard to deal with. If things take time, like, for instance, a contract or something else, it means that basically the clock is ticking for a small company. We focus on efficiency and moving fast. That is a challenge. As I pointed out earlier, contracting complexity. This is very simple to simplify, to my mind. And also, I think I would recommend to move more to milestone-based contracts rather than effort-based. Like, focus on the outcomes. Like, we are willing to take the risk. We're comfortable with that. We do that all the time in sort of like our other contracts. And it would basically help us to move faster, have less of a liability on the government side and budget responsibility, and move that over to our side. So those are things I think that would be, help us understand how the process works, so we don't have to spend so much time figuring it out. Move fast in contracting and simplify. Just keep it as simple as possible, and we're happy to take on more risk. Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Janssen. Dr. Leinen, I don't want to leave you without a question. Can you tell us, is NOAA taking full advantage of the commercially available data currently? And if not, is this an infrastructure problem, or are they just choosing to simply not use the data?
No, I don't think that NOAA is not taking advantage of it. And you've heard from the partners here about NOAA being a customer of theirs. And I think that, NOAA invests in things that, or takes on observations like Argo that are still, that require a lot of research expertise. And they also make all of that data available free and openly. And then they work with partners to be able to take on the specific area observations that are of interest to them to fill in the details of these big synoptic programs.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Hurd. And we have someone who should be in just a moment, so we'll pause for just a couple seconds, let them get in. All right, and the chair now recognizes Mr. Begets from Alaska for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My first question to Dr. Janssen. In your written testimony, you emphasized the open source bristlemouth platform as the USB of the ocean, helping expand plug-and-play sensor networks. What would it take to bring bristlemouth-enabled sensor arrays to the Arctic and nearshore waters of Alaska?
It's already there.
It is. Okay, that's great. And tell me more about how it's being utilized in Alaska.
Yeah, so we work with the National Science Foundation to create the Backyard Buoy program. And the point of bringing this instrument here is to showcase how simple and small it is. And the whole point was to bring it out in places where traditionally information was not available, and particularly in places that are highly sensitive to changes in weather and climate, and bringing the ability to have local folks deploy the sensors and get data in real time at places that they care about, for fisheries or others. And so these sensors are now in Alaska. We deployed them also with the Ice Center in the Arctic. They last through the winter time. You can have mooring systems that allow you, through Bristlemouth, to put other sensors onto it. And so the whole point is that you don't need us anymore to put other sensors and things that you care about. You can put a sensor on it. You can then over the air update the firmware on that subsurface sensor without touching anything else in the other system. Now, this is table stakes in modern IoT. Nobody would be surprised if your iPhone could do that. But in the ocean, that's a whole different thing. So I'm glad to be able to tell you that basically it's already out there, and we can expand that either through programs like the Backyard program or partnerships with universities and others.
That's fantastic. Can you speak a little bit further about some of the sensor packages that you have or that you're looking to deploy, particularly as it might relate to the Arctic?
Yeah, so we have a number of sensor integrations. The basic stuff is that we have metocean observations, so waves, winds, currents, water temperature, air temperature, barometric pressure. We're now adding observation capabilities around underwater sound. So we have a long dwell, low power, AI-enabled hydrophone systems that can do detection of vessels and mammals. And the cool thing is, and this is important, is the power. Traditionally, these systems would take anywhere from between 5 and 10 watts, which means it's very difficult to charge it from a small system. This is an order of magnitude lower power usage, so we can have a long dwell in places like the Arctic to listen for either underwater activity or surface, for instance, rainfall. We also have water level sensors to be able to detect tsunamis and searches. So effectively, if you put this system on a mooring with a pressure sensor on the bottom, you effectively be able to measure the water level, so you have tidal information, search information for storms, or the ability to detect a tsunami. So again, the whole point is, and this is the key takeaway, this is all about scaling information. We're not building things that nobody's ever built before, but we built them in a way that we can scale them up. A single exquisite data point in the ocean is pretty much useless. It's a very big place, and if you have one very exquisite data point, it's not going to improve modeling, it's not going to improve predictability very much. You need a lot of data, and so focusing on data unit economics, how much data can we get per dollar, is sort of like a mind shift that we've implicitly made always, right? When we bought a big instrument, it's could we have 2 more decimals of accuracy? Yeah, you can, and it costs X more, but let's do it. Or what if I trade that 2 decimal of accuracy, because this is actually good enough for what I want to measure, but I could have 1,000 sensors out there. And that's an implicit trade-off we've always made in the past, and what we're inviting people is to make that trade-off.
I love that. That is fantastic. You've got the ability to drive down that cost of acquisition and then have it persistent year-round.
Yes.
Do you have any sort of line of sight on perhaps the ability to conduct or support with adjunct data fish census activities that are currently happening through NOAA?
Yeah, again, for us, it's just sitting down with the communities and the scientists at NOAA and others to understand, what should we measure? What kind of proxy measurements could we make to inform, what the answer should be or what the insight is that we're trying to achieve? And then, again, create the flexibility to add those sensors and, deploy them at scale. And it's the same recipe. You want to understand, what is the problem we're trying to solve? Start there. That's your end user, the insight you're trying to solve for. Work your way back, what is the data that we need? So we don't start with a data-centric worldview in the sense we have to collect X, Y, Z data. We're trying to solve problems that are important and work our way down from top priority, lower priority. So a problem like this would be okay, let's define what we're trying to solve for, what do we need to measure, and make sure that we have systems like Bristlemouth to make that integration simple and make it possible to deliver that.
That's fantastic. Appreciate your testimony, and I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Beckich, and I thank our witnesses for being here with us this morning, for your valuable testimony. Very interesting, certainly for me and for members for their questions. The record will remain open for 10 days for additional comments and written questions from members. We did have some who were not able to be here today, so we'll have them submit questions for the record. And with that, the hearing is adjourned.